Same great taste. Yes, same great taste. Same great taste.
Is Gateway City Sports.
Behold the king of kings.
We couldn't do diddly poo.
I'm dropping the hammer.
No, you're not.
And that's the bottom line.
Here, have a quarter, make a phone call.
I have wrestled with an alligator.
What?
I done tussled with a whale.
What?
I done handcuffed lightning, throw thunder in jail.
Funky butt loving. Did he say funky butt loving?
There's no crying. There's no crying in baseball.
Let the big dog eat.
Woo! 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 It's time!
This is the Derek King Sports Show.
Here we go again. What are we doing? Let's think about this seriously. This is going to be, and I come in right on time because I want to make sure that I get this in today. Here we go again. St. Louis has not lost one football team. St. Louis has not lost two chances at a football team. St. Louis has lost three. Okay? We've been over this. Anybody that's followed me over the years knows all of the articles, the stories, the investigations that I've done, how I've criticized the NFL, how I've talked about the entire process of how it was rigged to get the Rams out of St. Louis, to get them back into LA, into that cash-laden television market. That when in 1995, when the Rams came to St. Louis, and mind you, let's not forget the Raiders also left Los Angeles to go back to Oakland. That was before streaming. That was before the NFL Network. That was before any of this other stuff. So now you don't have to put a single butt in a seat in order to make money in today's NFL. Fast forward, the Rams leave St. Louis. They do it under very negatable circumstances. What do you say? They lied their asses off. Let's be real. The truth is that early on in the process, St. Louis had the ability, and this is a fact, they had the ability to be able to retain the Rams in St. Louis at a cost. I've explained all of this in the past. Yes, they could have paid the arbitration fee, $770 million, whatever it was at the time back in 2012, 2013, when they did the arbitration process. They could have paid that. They could have stayed. The truth of the matter is what we're looking at now is this kind of revisionist history, this hindsight of looking back, and let's, the kind of the F. Stan Kroenke crowd. He's this horrible guy. He's this awful person that took football away from us, just like Bill Bidwill did back in the 80s. But let's make a difference between Bidwill and Kroenke. Bidwill never blamed the fans. I implore you to go to YouTube and look up the videos of Bidwill interviewed outside of NFL headquarters in New York City in tears, talking about don't blame the fans. This is not the fans' fault. Kroenke took a different route. That hurt a lot of people's feelings. That made them very angry, and rightfully so, considering the passionate base that is the St. Louis fan base. The difference between the two situations is that Bidwell wanted free money because he was cash poor in consideration of the rest of the owners in the league. He was the very first owner to ever ask for public funding for a stadium. So if you want to blame anybody about the public funding situation that has arisen around St. Louis football, you could blame Bill Bidwell. But, he's 6 feet under now. So what does it really matter at this point? The truth of the matter is that St. Louis has had multiple opportunities at not only retaining franchises. They could have kept the Cardinals had they had done the Dome back in the 80s. They didn't do it. So instead, what did they do? They let them leave. They let them go. Said, you know what? Don't let the door hit you on the butt on the way out. We don't need you. And then ain't it grand, just 3-4 years later, they're already having secret conversations in these, teetotaling high-end boardroom type meetings with big officials with big money and distributors and multimillionaires about bringing another NFL team back to St. Louis, hence the expansion process. Again, we're doing a lot of background here to get to this point. So then they start the expansion process. We're promised a team, everything else. But, oh, man, well, just guess what gets in the way again? St. Louis politics being St. Louis being St. Louis. Just doing St. Louis things like they always do and getting in front of themselves and constantly front running and never, ever looking at the situation and going, is this smart? Let's be clear. No one, and I mean this guy included, is saying anything bad about the fans. Nothing. This is purely on the city of St. Louis, the county of St. Louis, and basically the region, the market of the area that has nuclearized football in this market. It has not been the fans. It has been the leaders and powers that be that have screwed everything up to absolutely no end. And when we get to this stage now where we have the Battlehawks, we have formerly the XFL, now the UFL, blah, 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 blah. You guys saw my show last week, and what I had kind of talked about in a somber episode I had. It bothers me to a point to where I feel this needs to be addressed. I see a lot of fans. I see you. Okay, I see you. I see you on the fan pages. All right. I see you on Facebook. I see you on X. I see you on all these other different social media groups. I'm paying attention. I'm watching. I'm listening. And then all of a sudden, Mike Florio, whom I admire, very smart man, very articulate, educated, former lawyer, really knows the business, gets it, right? He puts a piece out on Pro Football Talk, PFT, basically stating that how much more does St. Louis have to show in order to be an NFL market. We already know we're an NFL market. St. Louis never wasn't an NFL market. That's the biggest crock of crap, the biggest load of garbage that I've ever heard, frankly, in my professional life, when they continuously say this same tired shtick, this same tired narrative that continues to get put out. I want to make a point. When that article came out, what happened? Boy, howdy, wouldn't you know who won the pony? It starts getting plastered all over the fan pages. It gets put over every single fan page. Everybody starts talking about, there's football in St. Louis. We need to show up. We need to show out. We need to make sure that all the fans show up to the Battlehawk games and show up and show out so that way we could prove to the NFL. What do you need to prove? Seriously. Think about that. Think of psychologically what that means. What is it that you as a fan have to prove anymore? Haven't we suffered enough? Haven't we dealt with enough? Please, I'm asking you out there in the video scope. have we as fans not suffered and proven enough? We have supported two horrible franchises over decades. Yes, you had one that had some promise and one that went to a Super Bowl and won it and got screwed out of a second one. We all know how that went. Don't need to go down the pathway of that. The Cardinals had some success in the 70s and brief little glimpses in the 80s. But we supported the football. We supported the product. We showed up. We showed out. The NFL knows this. We don't have anything else to prove. And what bothers me is the front runners, the so-called Battlehawks fans. I'm not talking about the real Battlehawks fans that are out there that are supporting the players, that are supporting the product because they want it to be successful and they want an alternative solution to the NFL because of their hatred and disdain of the NFL, which is rightfully warranted, rightfully so. But then I see the folks that are posting these things and saying, we need to show up and we need to show out to prove that we deserve an NFL team. And what are you supporting the product for? Why are you going to games? Why are you partaking in the product? Because it definitively shows to me that you care less about the Battlehawks and less about the product, and you're just trying to prove a personal point. You're trying to prove a personal point, a personal vendetta that you have against the NFL and Stan Kroenke, Satan Stan, Evil Stan. My glasses are a little crooked on my face. Headphones, you know. You want to prove a point. Okay, guess what? Your point's proven by your F. Kroenke chants and your F. Stan Kroenke banners. And screw Stan Kroenke. Guess what? Guys, it's been almost a decade. Think about it. We're in 2024. They left at the end of 2015. 2015, I should say, not 2015. What am I talking about? They left in 2015 at the end of it. What are we doing? Why do we keep running in circles and putting our head down and running into a brick wall? My point is this. If you want an NFL team, then by God, go whole hog on it. Don't sit here and talk about how you support the Battlehawks or you support an alternative product and you want to see success. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of hearing about it. I'm tired of seeing it. I'm tired of reading about it. I'm tired of reading articles from Mike Florio, who sits in an ivory tower at NBC or whatever, whomever supports it, and says to us, oh, well, St. Louis, the NFL should be paying attention and St. Louis deserves a football team. And then he does his rounds on St. Louis radio, and he's on 101 ESPN, or he's on 590, or wherever it is that he's at, and he's doing his little thing. We already know, okay? Don't preach to me from the pulpit and tell me, who's been in this market my entire life, who's watched St. Louis football my entire life, who's supported St. Louis football my entire life, and try to tell me and some of these great fans that are out there today that are watching this show. We know, okay? You don't need to tell us that the NFL should be paying attention. You don't need to remind us that we're great fans and we show up. Do I need to remind all the fans from about 2007 to about 2009, the worst stretch of football in NFL history, that St. Louis fans had to deal with? And for them to do what they did, kick the body on the way out the door, say we're a bad fan base, we didn't support the product. I want to make something vehemently clear. The only reason that the NFL and Stan Kroenke did that because they were scared to death. I know it, and I know it for a fact. They didn't know what to do when the fans put up a fight. And when Dave Peacock and Bob Blitz and crew started to get a plan together and actually made a credible move to try to keep the team in St. Louis, they didn't know what to do. They legitimately were so scared, so frightened, so worried, they threw anything at the wall to see if it would stick. They wanted to piss you off. They succeeded. They wanted to make you angry. Guess what? They won. They did exactly what they set out to do, was to make you so bitter and so vile and so angry. that you hate the product. You just want it gone. It's like that one toxic relationship that you've had in your life. You don't care by any means necessary. You want it gone. You want it lanced off. You want it out of your life forever. That's what they won at. They proved exactly what they wanted to prove, which was that we got to get out of St. Louis. We got to get back to LA, to the cash-laden grounds of the media things that are out in LA. We need to go back. St. Louis Stallions, yes, that was the expansion team. And you all have seen, and mind you, I'll pan you up right up there. You see that? See that hat sitting right up there? St. Louis Stallions, right there. So yes, I'm very familiar. Let's move on. Mr. Housewright, St. Louis isn't getting a team. Listen, I don't agree with that. I don't agree that St. Louis would not get a team. I'm going to get to that here in a second. He says that it's the truth. I will respectfully disagree with the good doctor. Sabrina says that she's over it. She doesn't want an NFL team. Rightfully so. Okay. That's your prerogative. You can feel that way. That's great. Leave the NFL alone. Mr. A-Train says, Jeremy's just back on his, he's on his tirade about it. He's rightfully so. Yeah, we're still mad. Yes, I get it. I'm with you 1,000%. I'm pissed off just like the rest of you guys and gals. I'm mad. I'm mad that I was a season ticket holder. I'm mad that I paid all the money and did all the stuff and supported that product for as long as I did. I'm mad. I'm with you 1,000%. Rams brass had made the decision to move, and they didn't care what people in St. Louis thought. It was all about money. I don't blame Kroenke one bit. He's a shrewd and damn good businessman. I want to emphasize on that for just a brief moment. Mr. Housewright makes a very valid claim there. There was a scene from the great Pirates of the Caribbean movie where Johnny Depp's character of Jack Sparrow said, I'm dishonest, and you can always trust a dishonest person to be dishonest. It's the honest ones you've got to worry about. Stan Kroenke is what Stan Kroenke is and always has been. He's never changed. He's the same animal he was before. He's always shown you. He's always told you. He's proven it time and time again. He is a shrewd, cutthroat real estate business mogul. That's how he made his billions, was being a cutthroat real estate business mogul. Do you think he gives a flying hoot whether or not you're upset at him or cares not while he's sitting there counting out millions and millions and more in dollar bills? It's just like Jerry Jones. Do you think he gives a flying rat's behind about what you guys think or how you feel about them boys? I've got a really good Jerry Jones impersonation, but I won't suffer you guys through it. Mr. Housewright makes a point, and he knows because he's a Chiefs fan. So he's steeped in the market. So he can attest to anybody that he understands that market better than most. I've watched the Chiefs my entire life. I've been around them, and they know that Clark Hunt will never let it happen. Well, here's the thing. Clark Hunt may not have a choice. He also says that he does wish that there's NFL in St. Louis, but he wants the NBA tier. Well, here's the thing. The NBA is never going to come to St. Louis. I know that for a fact. They've tried. They've went down that road. That's not happening. And I will also add to the last portion of that paragraph. I want to make something clear to the fans out there that are watching right now and listening right now. Expansion is off the table. It ain't happening. It ain't going to happen. Here's the reason. If you look at it from a business perspective, St. Louis beat the NFL in court. They had them high-ended up over a barrel. They could have done whatever they wanted to them, but they let them off the hook for $780, $90 million, whatever the final settlement was. The law firm got their $250,000 chunk, or $250 million chunk, I should say, not $250,000, $250 million chunk. So they made their money. They had a, hey, we put a lot of years and a lot of work and a lot of hours in this. We want paid. We want to get our money. And when Tashara Jones, the mayor of St. Louis, county executives, and everybody else who was involved in this abortion of a lawsuit decided to just wash their hands clean of it and say, well, the law team's handling that. We don't have anything to do with that. You've still got $500 some odd million sitting in a bank account in the city of St. Louis. So here's my suggestion to the fans out there that want an NFL team. I'm going to tell you how you do it. I'm going to tell you right now. And if anybody from the NFL, which I know people from the NFL that are watching this and listening, here's how you do it. You want a team? Here you go. That $500 million you got sitting in that bank account, here's what you do. You go to the NFL and you say, NFL, here's the deal. We got a dome in downtown St. Louis. It's not perfect, but it'll house a team for a couple of years. So here's our suggestion. We're going to take that $500 million that you paid us. It's not our money. You paid us. It's your money. And you kick in another $500 million because that's what you offered San Diego and Oakland and all these other entities. And then, not so secret memos now from behind the scenes that I personally released. Tack that on. You got a bill. You got a cool bill. Before you ever break down on a stadium, you've got $1 billion committed to a brand new stadium. Then you go out and you find your owner, or you find your team, or you find a team that needs to be sold and you go and court the owner to buy the team to bring them into the market. If you want to do it, this is how you do it. You want an NFL team? Start pressuring all of your representatives and tell them, we got $500 million sitting in the bank from the NFL that's collecting interest right now. Why don't we use that? Why don't we take the $500 million of the NFL's money and we basically give it back to them and then make them give us another, let's say worst case scenario, it's another $250 million for the fund to build a stadium in the city of St. Louis. Let's say we do that. Wow. Now you're starting to talk. It's even still $750 million. When you now have a scenario where every single municipality is saying no to the NFL, you have a facility in the Dome at America Center. It's been built. It's done. You could take that and do that. Now, Ed, he makes a really good point here that the $500 million will be squandered by the city long before the agreement could happen. I disagree. I don't think they know what to even do with it. I'm going to be honest with you guys. The fans out here that are watching me, you guys are smart. You're smart fans. You guys get it. You understand. You've paid attention for a really long time. They don't know what the left hand's doing versus what the right hand's doing. They have no concept. They have no construct. They can't think that far advanced. And the only reason to Tashara Jones and all of her individuals within city politics that she's put in places of power, they don't know whether to crap or wind their watch, as we would say in the biz. And the fact is, she doesn't have a clue what to do with the money. Because the only thing she was planning on whenever this whole thing was going is, I got to get that money before I get my butt kicked out of office or before I decide to leave to go on to some other venture. That's why it got settled. That's why it went the way it did. I don't care how anybody tries to slice it. It comes down to bare basic human nature and how these things work out. Floyd. It'll never happen. There's no appetite for NFL anymore, and a downtown stadium is a non-starter due to crime. Plus, do you really think St. Louis politicians would turn loose of their honeypot? Not a chance. Agreed. But what if it is in downtown St. Louis? What if they do fix it? I have seen And anybody that's been in downtown St. Louis enough and that has traveled to the Dome recently, like I have enough and over the years, over off of Tucker and Jefferson, okay? And you guys know where that intersection is. And as you're coming down Jefferson and you come across and you go down, down that way off of Cass, and you head across Cass and you head across Tucker, right? It's that kind of H highway area, and you have the hospital out there towards Jefferson on the corner, and you have all the old brewery building, all that stuff that's out there on the northern side. And then you come through, and then all on the right side, they're starting to build all those new buildings, all those really nice facilities and new buildings and stuff. They're making some adjustments. They're making some changes, albeit slow. There are things getting fixed. Here's one thing that I want to point out, and Sabrina hits the nail on the head right here, is the new team money will make money, and it's an investment. And she's right, because when the money's there, it pulls money in. Look at what happened to Market Street when the MLS built City SC's magnificent facility there on Market. It's pretty nice down there now, isn't it? They've done a lot of stuff. If you guys been down there, if you haven't been down there, go down there and check it out. There's some really awesome stuff that's down that way. It says they've already had people vote on how the money is to be spent, and football isn't a part of it. Here's the thing. Your voice speaks louder than words. And if you guys start to talk and say, hey, we want the NFL back in St. Louis, they're going to do it, irregardless of how they feel. We're going a little bit long on this morning on the NFL front. I just felt like it was something that I needed to address, because I don't feel that there are certain fans that are utilizing the Battlehawks as a leverage in order to get another NFL team. And it's sad to me that we are here at this point, that the Battlehawks are being utilized as a linchpin leverage point in order to get what they want, instead of, it's kind of a lot of doublespeak, right? And I know that I'm kind of talking in circles about it, because I don't want to necessarily point anybody out. There's people I personally know that are doing this. When Tim McKernan just the other day on 101 ESPN made his statements be known, it's like, hey, listen, I really don't follow the product that well, but it really does fascinate him that it has the support that it does, and it does as well as it does. But that's the reality of the world that we live in. This is where we are with all of it. What do I need to say? That's it right there. Boom. Put a little bow tie on it. There you go. We're going to star that comment right there. Boom. So we need to move on to the next segment, and that's the Cardinals situation in St. Louis. And I implore everybody, keep commenting on the St. Louis thing. If you guys want to continue to keep talking about the NFL St. Louis thing, just go at it in the comments. Knock yourself out. Because I read all the comments. I go through everything. That's how I dictate my shows and my content going forward for you guys. But I need to address the Cardinal situation. I know there's a lot of apathy and probably going to get a lot of tune out on this, but it's something that needs to be pointed out. The Cardinals, the St. Louis baseball Cardinals, are dead. There's no life there. The fans have lost excitement. The fans have lost interest. The apathetic response has set in for the organization. They're in trouble with the fan base in a way that they've never been in trouble before. Look at the Dallas Cowboys. Look at the New York Yankees. Look at the Los Angeles Dodgers. Look at certain particular teams in certain particular sports. They have exceeded what it is to be a team. They are now a brand like Nike, like Adidas, like Gatorade. They are a brand They are an experience. The Cardinals have used that leverage and that angle for the last 2 decades to leverage fans that you're the best fans in baseball. They've blown smoke up your butt about that for years. The best fans in baseball. And I'm not disputing that the Cardinals fans are the best fans in baseball. The difference that I want to address is that this organization has shown up to this point that either you're phoning it in or you're planning on selling the team. Because when you are to this point where you continue to trot out the same old tired lineups with the same old wash, rinse, repeat, scenarios and situations with the same type of pitching staff, you go out and you get pitchers. You say, well, we love our pitching staff. We feel like we have 5 or 6 starters. And then you go and you blow up the bullpen when the starters are faltering, and it's not the bullpen's fault, but you blow up the bullpen. And then guys are doing good in the lineup, and then you send them down to AAA for just absolutely no apparent reason because somebody 2 spots behind them in the lineup is doing bad, and because you want to move them up. Or this is ludicrous. This is absolute ridiculousness to a level that I've never seen. You hire managers consistently that have been running on LaRussa fumes since he left at the end of 2011. You hire Mike Matheny, you fire Mike Matheny. You hire Mike Schilt, you fire Mike Schilt. You hire Oli Marmol, you are eventually going to end up firing Oli Marmol. It's a matter of time. He's in over his head. It's the truth. And whether or not some fans want to hear it or they don't want to hear it, I'm not trying to be negative Nancy about it. I'm just addressing the 10,000-pound polka dotted pink elephant in the room. This is where we are with the organization. When the Cardinals, when people would see the STL on a cap, or they would see the birds on the bat, they would immediately, almost unconsciously, go, that's baseball. That's baseball heaven. That's baseball city. That's what we got accused of by the NFL and other people within the NFL thing back in 2015. It's just a baseball town. They don't give a hoot about football. They don't care. Well, we've proven otherwise time and time and time again that that's not true. We're a sports market, whether that's soccer, MLS, whether that's hockey, Stanley Cup, whether that's football, been to the Super Bowl, won it, supported 2 bad teams, or whether it's 11 World Series. One way or another, or 12 World Series, I forget. I can't keep track of all of them. But you get my point. The Cardinals organization they've just leaned into this sense of complacency and regularity. The fans will accept it. It will be okay. You have to be patient. The DeWitts have never known losing, owning this organization. They're getting a taste of it now. I remember 93, 94. I remember when the White Rat walked away. I remember I was watching baseball. I was well alive. And I remember what happened during that time frame. I know a lot of fans out there watching the show right now remember. This organization has now fallen, as Dusty Rhodes, the great Dusty Rhodes would say, hard times. They have fallen on hard times, and they've expected the fans to continuously bail them out. They will not be bailed out any longer. The fans have grown apathetic. In the world of business, when you're hiring employees, the one thing that you're always looking at, you're trying to keep your fingers on the pulse, right? About what's happening. How does my employees feel about this company? Are they excited? Are they unhappy? Or are they apathetic? Let me tell you something about apathy. Apathy is the one thing that you cannot negotiate with, you can't leverage, you can't discuss things. You are screwed when someone becomes apathetic to a product or a situation like the fans have become with the St. Louis baseball Cardinals. They are apathetic about the product. And when that happens, you can't negotiate with them. You can't talk to them. You can't have a conversation with. You can't tell them to be patient or anything, because you want to know what? You're starting to see it. 30,000. Would you ever thought you'd see the day where you'd see 27, 25, 27, 30,000 fans in Busch? I mean, would you ever have thought it over the last 2 decades, almost 3 decades? Would you ever have thought that there would be a Saturday game and you'd only have 30,000 in the stadium? That's fascinating to even think about. Apathy is a dangerous emotion because it's irrational and you can't respond to it. You can't negotiate with it. You can't talk to it. I personally know some of the most diehard St. Louis Cardinals fans in the world, and they don't even want to watch a game. Okay, remember this. I remember when there used to be a time I would just turn the TV on and just have the Cardinals game on, or turn the radio on and listen to the late, great Mike Shannon. It's not that way any longer. No more has it become that way for me, because the product has become so stagnant and unwatchable that I desire no longer to watch the product through and through. I would just rather watch the highlights. And that's what's sad. Considering as big as a fan as I am in baseball, that I followed baseball my entire life. You all know how big of a fan I am with football. I followed football my entire life. I walked away from the NFL in 2015 after they did what they did to St. Louis. And it wasn't because I know what I know now. It was because of my just pure unbridled hatred for what they did. You know what scares me even more? Is knowing what I know now. Knowing what they did behind closed doors. That a majority, probably 98, 99% of fans don't know what I've been told. They don't know what I've read. They don't know what I've seen. I could tell you that the NFL is a conglomerate and that they are gangsters. Not all of them, but the ones that control everything and run the gambit are. Do you think baseball is much different? No, I hate to burst people's bubbles. The MLB is just as bad as the NFL, is just as bad as the NHL, is just as bad as the NBA. These are multimillionaires and billionaires we're talking about here, who have continuously made money. How? Why is it that they are as wealthy and as rich are these owners? There's a reason for that. They've stepped on the necks and cut the throats of other individuals in order to get where they are and maintain their position of power. It's obvious. They cared so little about you, because all you are as a fan, you're a number. You're not season ticket holder Jeremy Housewright. You're not season ticket holder Ed Flager. You're not season ticket holder Billy Fesden, who I'm seeing all these people in the comments. So I'm giving you a shout out. You're not that. You're not an individual. You are a number associated to that season ticket. You are a number, an account number. Those owners died years ago. They no longer exist. The players figured it out a long time ago. That's why they make the contracts they do. The players unions, everybody, they figured it out a long time ago of how to handle these owners. I think just now, since the pandemic, everything's shut down. A lot of things changed. The money dried up. Bad economy right now. Everything's kind of sideways with the housing market and the car market and everything else. The money's dried up. And that's why the great people of Kansas City said, yeah, no, we're not going to give you any money, even though you've won multiple Super Bowls and have been in the playoffs consistently and had a winner. Think about that for a second. St. Louis said no, and they lost a football team. Let me make something clear, and even the good doctor could back me up on this. The Kansas City Chiefs are going nowhere. So when they threaten, oh, well, we'll move to St. Louis, so we'll move here. You ain't moving nowhere. You're not going to move back to Dallas because Jerry Jones won't let it happen. The McNair estate won't let it happen in Houston. You honestly think that we're that dumb? Give me a break. You're staying in Kansas City. So it's either one of two things is going to happen with the Chiefs. Okay, you ready? Number one, you're either going to stay right where you're at. Okay. Or number two, you're going to jump across state lines and you're going to get tax breaks going over to the state of Kansas. You're still going to be, whether you're in Raytown or you're in Overland Park, it doesn't matter where you're going to be at. It does not matter. The Clark family owns real estate all over on both sides of the state. They could do whatever they want. They could go wherever they want. They could build whatever they want. Do you realize that the Hunt family's worth, I think, like nearly $25 billion? They could do whatever they want with the Kansas City Chiefs. And whenever people want to start stomping their feet and they want to start talking about how they're scared about the Royals going somewhere, they're scared about the Chiefs going somewhere, they ain't going nowhere. They ain't got nowhere to go. The Phoenix Coyotes, NHL team, are moving out of Phoenix and going to Salt Lake City, Utah. The Diamondbacks are in discussions to be going to Salt Lake City and going to Utah to play baseball. They've already got an NBA team in the Utah Jazz. What's the last one, guys? You can start to see the connection. You start slinging money around. They approved two different measures for $850 million apiece. So it's $1.7 billion that they approved for two Major League Baseball, NHL. They already have an NBA team. You don't think they won't make a move for the NFL next? Even though, again, the market size doesn't matter anymore because it's not about the market size necessarily. Look at LA, for example, what I just said earlier. I know we're going long on this show. We usually do a 30-piece. We're moving into an hour-long segmented portion of this show because we have to. We have so much to discuss and talk about. We talked about the NFL earlier. We're talking about baseball and the Chiefs and what's going on in Kansas City and what's going on with the St. Louis Cardinals. And now we're talking about Utah and what's going on there. Let's not forget about the Oakland Athletics debacle in Oakland and Las Vegas. They were supposed to be in Vegas, guys. They were supposed to be. They okayed the move. Major League Baseball was behind it. But now all of a sudden they're going to be playing 2 years in Sacramento? What in the blue hell is going on out there? Nobody seems to know. But we all know that the Oakland Athletics owner is a hot, steaming, you know what? I don't have to go into who or what they are. Arlington, my man, educate me up. MLS is in Salt Lake. He's absolutely correct. And see, I always get that confused, right? Because Salt Lake City, you think mountains and you think rivers and stuff like that. I always think of the Rapids, but that's actually in Colorado. So they play in Colorado Springs or Denver, wherever it is that they play at. I can't remember, but they're just in Colorado. Yeah. Jeremy, don't forget about the Pacers. Game 2 tonight. It is on the NBA playoffs. If you're checking it out, it is on tonight. Jeremy, you're supposed to have to educate me on if that's going to be on NBC or what that's going to be on. So we need to pop into the comments section and let me know what channel that's going to be on tonight. The Utah Jazz recently changed the culture in Salt Lake. Absolutely, because of their owner and because of what the spank that he's put into that market and what he's done and the success of college football in Utah. Bam, right there. Arlington, I'm not even going to put that up. Go Knicks. TNT, there you go. There you go, folks. Tonight, NBA playoffs, TNT. You need to check it out. And if you haven't checked out the latest A-Train show, go check it out. He talks a lot about the NBA this week. Make sure you go give it a holler. Quinn Snyder is still the coach there in Utah. You remember when Quinn Snyder was the coach at Mizzou for a brief period of time after he was Coach K's assistant at Duke? Man, that's going back. It's going back a ways. That goes back to like just post Norm Stewart days. Wow. That's really saying something. Woo, doggy. Man, oh man. Taking us back in time. So let's get back to this Utah thing. Look at the Utah market. Look at where they are. They're on an island out there in Salt Lake. It's a good spot. It's a dead zone. Right out there in the western portion of the United States. Next closest team is Denver. Next closest team is up in Seattle. We're talking about NFL here, so kind of just to be organizationally correct. Denver Broncos, Seattle Seahawks, San Francisco 49ers. Well, what would we really call them? Because they're not even in San Francisco. They're out in the county. I mean, what would you really call them? Because they're not in the Bay Area anymore. They just stuck with the name San Francisco 49ers. Kind of the same thing with the Chicago Bears and Arlington Heights. Are they going to call them the Arlington Bears? How's that going to work? I don't know. We've got so many teams now in the NFL that are looking to bounce, go one direction, go the other direction. We've got in Major League Baseball teams that are threatening to move. Remember just here a couple of years ago in Major League Baseball when all of the discussion was around Nashville. Remember that? Remember how hot to trot they were? Nashville. Nashville's where it's at. That's what's going to happen. That's going to be where the next Major League Baseball team goes. And then all of a sudden, everybody's like, oh, no, the Athletics are going to Vegas. And now we're talking about Salt Lake and the Diamondbacks being there. Phoenix, you better watch out. You've lost one. Look at what happened to Oakland. They lost the Warriors. They lost the Raiders. They're losing the Athletics. This is a cautionary tale in history. It's something to be thought about. Look what they did to St. Louis with the NFL. Obviously, baseball hasn't bounced, done anything like that. Look at how many teams have been in and out of Los Angeles over the last, let's say, 40 years-ish, somewhere in that range, 50 years-ish. I mean, you can go back in time. Every single team that LA has had, there's only been, that I can think of, and Arlington, Will, or Jeremy Housewright can attest and or even correct me, has been the Kings. The LA Kings have been the only homegrown, homeborn LA team. Every other team has come from another market. Let's count them down. The Dodgers came out of Brooklyn. Lakers came out of Minnesota. Was it Minnesota? Minnesota Lakers? I believe it was Minnesota Lakers. So we got the Dodgers, we got the Lakers. The Clippers, I believe, came out of the Northeast, if I'm not mistaken. Then you've got the, all the other teams. Gosh, I can't even think of all the other teams that have been in and out. The Rams were originally from Cleveland. The Chargers originally from San Francisco. Actually, let's go back even on the Chargers situation. They originated in LA. They went to San Diego, stayed there for 60 years, and then went back over to LA. So technically speaking, Los Angeles is the second homegrown team. If you really want to get down to the brass tacks and argue real serious points, you're talking about two teams there in the Chargers and the Kings in LA. Minneapolis Lakers. You know, it always is funny to me because I always associated the Lakers because of the gold yellow color that they have on their uniforms. So I'm a farm boy, grew up that way. That's just the way it was. I was always around tractors and everything, and I grew up around the Minneapolis Moline brand, along with like Massey Ferguson and Whites and things like that. And that color scheme of the Minneapolis Molines back in that time frame were exactly the same colors as the Minneapolis Lakers. So it's just an interesting anecdotal little tidbit I throw in there. It just always reminds me of. Now, you go back to the Kings' original colors, and weren't they purple and yellow or whatever back in whatever time before the Gretzky years? They were. Will makes a really good point here that he would not count any of the Anaheim teams. So does that count the California Angels? Because let's remember the California Angels were always the California Angels. Were they playing in Anaheim even back then? I'd have to go back and consult the mental Rolodex a little bit back whenever they had Nolan Ryan there. And I believe Reggie Jackson did a stint there, but Reggie Jackson was a Southern California guy anyway, played in Oakland for a lot of years with the A's, left, went to the Yankees, came back. I don't know if he had 1 or 2 years. Reggie Jackson did with the California Angels. And obviously Nolan Ryan had a long stint in his career with the California Angels after the New York Mets, because he went from the Mets in the 60s, won that World Series in 68. And then he went over to California, played with the Angels, and then went to Houston, played with the Astros, and then ended up with the Rangers. Mr. Kevin says that Vegas is the next city to have a team. All major sports think Salt Lake is trying to be the next in line. So this is something I want to point out, and I want to emphasize this. Let's go ahead and start this right here. Boom. This is a good point. This is a good something he's touching on here with Vegas and Salt Lake. I think that now, Kevin, I think Salt Lake surpassed them. Because I don't think that Vegas is willing to put the money up anymore. They put up 700. Okay, so Kevin, correct me on this. You're a Vegas guy, right? You know exactly the dollar amount that they had to give up. Was it 750, 770, 780 million dollars that the government had to give up in order to get the Raiders to Vegas? It was a lot of money. So you have to pop in there and tell me about that. Mr. Arlington says California Angels used to play at Dodgers Stadium in the second Wrigley Field that no longer exists. Yeah, there you go. There's your history. I'm not as familiar with the California Angels lineage and history as I should be, but that's the way it is. Mr. Housewright, Vegas is a wonderful city for sports. I agree because of the gambling aspect. You know, I've been on the Strip, went to several concerts and things in Vegas, know all about the market all too well, and I can attest it is an excellent sports city. It is an entertainment city. If you're talking about sports as entertainment, I would even go as far as horse racing, baseball, football, hockey, whatever you want to do. The Vegas Knights are doing excellent out there. They've had a lot of success. Somewhere around the $750 million mark is from what I stated. But you have to understand how much money is in the city. Vegas is a money pipeline on its own. Well, and let's go back in time during the 60s when the mob ran it. The mob had its hands in deep in that until they all got ran out eventually. And this is where the Vegas thing, this is where the sports gambling kind of comes in. And again, time and time, and I want to point something out as I reach for this, is Pete Rose, right? So his book, Play Hungry, The Making of a Baseball Player. If you guys haven't read it, make sure you go check it out and read it. It's really good information. It's really good backlog of story of what goes on. Pete is big in Vegas. He's involved in a lot of stuff out there. And the reality is he was banned from baseball for betting on baseball. Shohei Ohtani, his interpreter got nabbed for betting. And the claim is that Shohei didn't know nothing about it. I'm going to call BS on that one. I'm going to say that's a hard no for me, dog. He knew. He knew what was going on. I mean, could you just imagine if Pete had an interpreter to blame? He'd probably be off scot-free too. And plus, it was, different situation, different scenario. I'm not saying Pete Rose is a saint by any stretch of the imagination. But if you're going to talk apples to apples and you're going to say, well, we don't want gambling in baseball, but yet this segment of Major League Baseball TV is brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings, where players play, or whatever their mantra is. Come on. What are we talking about here? We know this is all about gambling. We know that the billions and billions of dollars that fly around. If people really knew about how many owners of teams and things like that bet on sports and do all the things that they do and all the money flying around, that's why they are the way they are. That's why they're doing what they're doing. That's why they're now finally moving into Vegas. That's why they're not trying to hide it anymore. Mr. Lane says he doesn't buy it on Ohtani, and neither do I. If I was to believe that Shohei Ohtani didn't know anything about the betting, I am probably growing a horn out of the middle of my forehead at this point, because we all know that it is true. How do you think all this money is in Vegas? Mob money still runs and flows through the city because it's different. It's a different type of mob money. Because back in the day when the mob was the mob, right? And they had syndicates out of Chicago and New York and things like that. They had the Vegas hub, and they were doing all of that. That was a little bit different because it was organized crime. And the fact that how they were moving money kind of Al Capone style, where Al Capone was doing alcohol and things like that, and he eventually got nabbed on taxes. With the Vegas structure and how it is now, all the powers that be, the political players that are in the political world as we speak right here, right now, they're in on it. They all have their hands on it. It's just a giant money laundering circle is all it is. It's move the money in, wash it, move it out. Goes to something else. And they always have these surrogates, right? Like Ohtani had his interpreter. And they have these surrogates that do the money run for them. So if they ever get caught, they can blame someone else. Junk bonds, according to Sam Ronstein, casino junk bond. Back then, yeah, a little bit of that, but not now. 100% now, it's just organized mob money. Yeah, that's just what it is, So I want to close things out and put a nice little bow tie on it because we're coming up on the 1 hour mark, and that's my hard line. That St. Louis fans, football fans, if you want a football team, earlier on in the show, I told you how to do it. You want to do it? That's how you do it. Okay, go back, check it out. Reverse. With the St. Louis baseball Cardinals, they're in trouble. There's changes that are going to have to be made. People are going to have to be fired. With the Salt Lake situation, they're movers and shakers. They're moving on up. Vegas, you better watch out, because if you were thinking you were going to get a baseball team right away, you're starting to screw the pooch with the athletics thing. You better get on the pony because it's about ready to ride out of town. So this is where we are. With all of this stuff, there's so much more to talk about. And I would have talked more, but frankly, we're already an hour in and I got to get out of here. I got stuff to do. I got places to go. I got to see a man about something. So, we got to get things taken care of. Guys, thank you so much. Ladies, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys tuning in for the show this week. We're going to be back next week. We're going to be talking about a lot more of this stuff because it's starting to kind of heat up again. And we got so much more to talk about. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. I will see you guys next week, Wednesday. We might play around with the programming format a little bit as far as timing wise. We've had a really great show today. We've been pulling in great live numbers for this show across all platforms. So I thank everybody as much as I can. But we might end up changing formatting a little bit. But if we do, we're not going to change it right away. We'll let you guys know ahead of time. Maybe we're shooting for more of a primetime show. So that way I could be a little bit more colorful, don't you know? Yeah. And so we might change things up a bit. But thank you guys. Appreciate it so much. Thank you for joining me on the show today. Take it easy.